Hi, my name is Daniel Nguyen, and today we will be looking into the Grassroots Civil Rights Movement. When we begin to talk about the Civil Rights Movement, we first need to address what the movement was and who was a part of it. The movement was designed to push for legislative laws to be passed to guarantee equal rights for all non-white races. Rights that they were fighting for were the rights to have equal opportunities when it came to voting, applying for jobs that require formal educations, and fair wages across all races. The movement included Hispanics and African Americans, but in this video we will be highlighting the endeavors that African American people faced and overcame. The movement was led by Martin Luther King and adopted a non-violent way of protest, inspired by Gandhi. The protests included boycotting public buses, sit-ins, which were basically where activists refused to leave until their demands were met, and active protests on the streets. This form of protest, however, was not always met with the level of friendliness that they anticipated. In one of the testimonies from a Senate hearing in 1969, two migrant African American workers from North Carolina described an account that they had when they were protesting. On many occasions when they were trying to protest, many people tried to disrupt it by driving their trucks between the picket lines. They tried putting up with it, but eventually they had to go to the police in order to get things solved. But when the police got involved, many of the police, even the sheriff, treated them with disrespect and told them that there was nothing that they could do about it besides having to shut it down, so that they wouldn't draw any unnecessary attention to themselves. This lax viewpoint shared by the common white community and how their opinions and rights were being ignored. Black citizens were still being viewed as second-class citizens in the eyes of the government. Instead of always dealing with the police's lack of involvement and many white supremacists disrupting the nonviolent protests, many people decided to take matters into their own hands and arm themselves to fight against the violence. The biggest group that had shared this common goal of interest was the Black Panther Party. Led by Malcolm X, he believed that the African Americans should protect themselves and should be able to defend themselves from violent hate acts, and that behavior designed to bring down their morals and beliefs should not be tolerated. This mindset, however, conflicted with the police, causing many innocent people being injured. In his interview with Dick Elman in 1962, he was talking about an encounter two members had with the policeman. He then began to proceed to explain that the police officers were using excessive force, and the two members were trying to explain what they were doing at night. When things started escalating between law enforcement and the alleged perpetrator, one of the officers shot his guns, waking up the entire neighborhood. The gunshot alarmed other police officers, and instead of converging on where the incident happened, the police officers that were ensuing rushed to the local mosque and opened fire. After the whole incident passed, 7 unarmed Muslims were left dead and 1 person paralyzed. The Texas encounter between the black people and police enforcement led many people to believe that police officers were only there to restore peace when they had to, and that this maintained the dominance that white people had over other races. Things were starting to get out of hand between black citizens and the police enforcement, and no major bills had been passed at the time to dilute the anger and restore peace within the mass. In Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail, he voices his concern about the direction that America was heading in. If there were changes were not going to be made, America was going to be torn apart, and that the longer this violence continued, the harder it would be to restore this peace in the country. It wasn't until we reviewed the talk between Martin Luther King and LBJ do we finally hear the requests of African Americans being addressed. Throughout the entire conversation, LBJ listens carefully to the issues that have been brought up in the past and tells Dr. King that he is going to do everything in his power to help pass the Civil Rights Act through the House, despite having many other bills to address. This conversation helps reveal that even though the government was known for ignoring the rights and requests made by black people, LBJ was more than willing to not only listen to MLK, but had also respected Dr. King and all the demands that he presented. In his conversation with Charles Howlett, LBJ remains adamant on his promise to pass the bill, showing that he is not even afraid to argue with his House of Representatives to pass civil rights bills. This proactive approach helped move the civil rights bill out of the House in hopes of making the bill. His persistence finally paid off, and the Civil Rights Act was eventually passed in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965. With the passage of these bills, equal rights were guaranteed to all despite the color of their skin. For the relentless effort of all the activists, it is safe to say that we would not be enjoying some of our rights today had it not been for them. This part of history teaches us that if we believe in something, that we must never give up, and even in the face of oppression, nobody can tell us what we can and are allowed to do besides ourselves.